Keith, how are you this morning?
Well, I'm upright. I think that's the most important factor.
How'd you celebrate your birthday?
Quietly.
Are you watching much football? Much sports?
Oh, I'm wearing out the chair at the dining room table. I've been known to sit here 12 hours looking at different
Really?
sports television. But I'll tell you kind of a weird thing, and I don't really know why, but when I left the Rose Bowl in '06 after the USC-Texas game, and a game I thought was marred by mistakes on all people involved in the ball game, what was one of the most exciting games I've ever seen was not, in fact, one of the best games I've ever seen because there were too many mistakes made on all parts. But I came home, I sat down at the supper table and had a meal with my bride, and we leaned back and we watched a little television and went to bed and went on into a whole new step in our lives. And I have not yet been to a football game of any kind, anywhere, since that '06 game.
That was the final broadcast for you.
That was it.
But Vin Scully said to me last year that he'll know when it's time. How did you know it was time?
Oh, even at the point where the sun looked funny coming up over the horizon. It became more and more difficult trying to assume that someone was right or wrong, and it was very difficult to chase it down, and get a declaration that you could believe in. And I got tired of trying to do that. And I figured I wasn't qualified to do what I was trying to be, and so I quit. 56 years is long enough, though, Dan.
Yeah, that's a long time. Well, that's why I marvel at what Vin's been able to do for this amount of time, and to do it with just one team.
Yeah, you did it with one sport.
Yeah.
And that's probably less wearing than what we were trying to do there at ABC, run all over the world and cover things that people had never heard of before. And if you didn't save your notes, and some producer called and said, hey, tomorrow afternoon we got to do a layover on some sport that you'd forgotten that you had ever seen. So that tends to wear you down a little quicker, I think, probably, than the repetitive stuff.
What do you miss the most?
Oh, I miss the excitement of one team winning and one team losing. And there have been many moments that have long since passed from our memories that I still recall as being extraordinary moments in the games that we play. I remember one time that watching in a baseball game that probably a few people were watching, but a young fellow showed up on the mound, and I can't even tell you now at this age what his name was. But I watched him strike out the entire Cincinnati batting order and save a game in St. Louis. And I didn't think that was possible because Cincinnati back in those days had some real hammer throwers.
Yeah, the Big Red Machine.
They were hard to strike them out. But he did it on that one afternoon.
He's Keith Jackson, a great broadcaster, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. When you first started out, with being from Georgia, having that Southern voice, was that ever an issue when it came to broadcasting on the national level, or hurt you in any job interviews?
Oh, yes, of course it did, because I think that the people on the other side of the table made more of it than was warranted, because I never did try to manufacture a Southern voice. It was just what was taught to me, or what was I heard as a little fellow. But over the course of that youth, somebody, and I think of many people who might have been the source of it, was that if you're going to be in broadcasting, there is one thing that you must never, ever, ever give up on. You must never stop accumulating vocabulary. and it's still true.
What was it about college football that seemed to fit your voice? Whether that you thought that was the perfect fit for it, but we certainly found that it was the perfect fit for your voice.
Oh, I never thought about it. It was the only voice I had, so it's the one I used. But the game of football involves every emotion that's possible to a human being. In the course of 60 minutes, I think you can probably be touched by any emotion you can think of, short of childbirth, and we're working on that. But that's, I guess, my prime reason for it, because to this very day, you can see on the playground which one of the little fellows is suddenly squared his shoulders and bowed his neck, and he will go and try to express himself over the opponent. And that's life. It's competitive. It has all of the competitive elements of making a living and raising a family and all of that.
Why do people still think that you said, "Whoa, Nelly"?
I don't know. I never thought about it. I got it from my great-grandfather, Jefferson Davis Robinson, who was not a large fellow, but he was a very good farmer. And he was always working on something with his hands and creating things to make his life a little easier. But he had a little bit of a temper underneath that hat that he wore all the time. And when he would get frustrated or drop something or break something, many times I heard him say, as he had that half whistle that so many people seem to have back in those days, where it wasn't really a whistle, it was just sort of a that kind of a thing. And Grandpa would break something, and I could hear him say, "Oh, whoa, Nelly, dadgummit." And that stuck.
Oh, I thought that there were times when people kept saying, "Oh, say, well, Nelly," or there was one expression that you were given credit for that I thought you tried to distance yourself from. Was there one? Or am I forgetting something here?
Oh, I don't think so.
Yeah, I thought for some reason that you were saying you didn't say, "Well, Nelly," and then I know you'd say, yeah, different phrases, but for some reason I thought people were trying to pin that on you with "Well, Nelly," but if it's yours, then I apologize.
Well, I didn't want to give Grandpa name credit every time I said it.
And also, were you up for doing the Miracle on Ice, doing the hockey broadcast during the 1980 Winter Olympics that Al Michaels did? Were you part of that decision at all?
Yes, I was. I absolutely was part of it. I said no.
One of the great.
Because I was born and raised on a little farm and right on the Georgia-Alabama line. We didn't have hockey down south in those years. We didn't have Major League anything down south in those years, if you remember. I mean, the Nashville Vols were important to the Atlanta Crackers and the Mobile Bears and those folks. But I never had been to. I went to my first hockey game and saw a real hockey game, two pro teams playing in New York City, when I had been in the Marine Corps for 2.5 years. And a friend of mine who lived in Brooklyn took me to see a hockey game. That's the first one I ever seen. I didn't know a damn thing about hockey, so I wasn't going up there and make a fool out of myself. It was senseless. And Al had done hockey in Cincinnati and some other places and was well-versed in it and did a fine job.
Yeah. Well, it's great to catch up with you. Hope many more birthdays there, and we appreciate you taking time to join us, Keith.
Well, I wish you continued success. You've done quite well for yourself, young fella.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you.
We're proud of you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
That's Keith Jackson, 88 years of age.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.